The night I ended up crouched in my neighbor's crawl space, with a headlamp strapped to my forehead and a socket wrench in my hand. I had been planning on a very different kind of evening. I'm 32. I do IT infrastructure work, mostly remote, sometimes on-site for small businesses around the Ottawa area. I moved into my building about 2 years ago, a 6-story brick walk-up on Olmsted Street in the Glebe. It's the kind of building where the elevator is technically functional, but everyone takes the stairs out of principle. I like it there. My neighbors mostly leave me alone. I leave them alone. That's the unspoken agreement that holds the whole place together. I had just wrapped a call with a client in Mississauga, eaten half a container of leftover butter chicken from the place on Bank Street, and was genuinely looking forward to doing absolutely nothing for the rest of the night. Maybe watch something. Maybe not even that. Just exist quietly in my apartment with a beer and no obligations. That was the plan. Then my phone buzzed. Hey, sorry to bother you. This is Nadia from 4C. We met in the stairwell a couple of weeks ago. The woman with the very loud tote bag. You helped me figure out which mailbox was mine. Anyway, weird question, but do you by any chance know anything about home networks? My router died, and I have a project due at 9 a.m., and I'm completely losing my mind. I stared at the message for a second. I did remember her. We'd talked for maybe 90 seconds. She had a canvas tote with a cartoon of a very serious-looking cat on it. She'd laughed when she couldn't figure out which key opened the mailbox and said something like, "This is genuinely the most stressful thing that's happened to me this week," which tells you a lot about my week. I'd helped her figure it out and gone upstairs and not thought about her again until that moment. I typed back, "What kind of router?" She sent a photo, a mid-range Asus that looked like it had been functioning fine until about 20 minutes before she texted me. I asked her what lights were showing on the front. She described them wrong in a way that made it clear she'd never had to look at a router before in her life, which is fair, most people haven't. "I can come take a look if you want. I'm literally just watching nothing," she replied in about 4 seconds. "Please, I will owe you forever. 4C. I knocked on her door at 8:47 p.m. She answered it in paint-stained sweatpants and a university hoodie. Carlton, the big red C across the chest, with her hair pushed back in a clip that was clearly doing its best. She looked like someone who had been working for 10 hours straight and had just received confirmation that things were going to get worse. "Hi," she said. "Thank you. Genuinely. Come in. Sorry about the state of things. I've been on deadline since Tuesday." Her apartment was a studio, same layout as mine but mirrored. She had a drafting table set up near the window with papers everywhere, a half-empty pot of coffee on the counter that looked like it had been brewed sometime before lunch and never properly dealt with, and a small cactus on the windowsill that appeared to be thriving on neglect. I liked the place immediately. It looked like someone actually lived there. The router was sitting on the kitchen counter. I picked it up, checked the back, pressed the reset button and held it for 30 seconds. Nothing useful happened. "When did it stop working?" I asked. "Around 7, she said, leaning against the counter with her arms crossed, watching me. "It just died. I was in the middle of uploading something, and then nothing. I restarted it 4 times. Did you try the other cable?" I pointed to the spare Ethernet cable coiled near the wall outlet. She looked at it. "There was another cable." "Yeah, I didn't know there was another cable." "That's okay," I said. "That's swapped if I'm here for." I swapped the cable, still nothing. The router had actually given up. It wasn't a software issue. It wasn't a restart issue. The unit itself was done. I turned it over and explained this to her as gently as I could, given that her 9 a.m. deadline was still a real problem. She exhaled slowly through her nose. "Okay," she said, in the voice of someone choosing not to catastrophize in front of a person they barely know. "Okay, so what do I do? What's your phone provider?" "Rogers. You can set up a mobile hotspot from your phone right now. It'll be slower than your usual Wi-Fi, but more than enough for uploading files. Here." I held out my hand, and she gave me her phone without hesitating, which I found interesting. She watched over my shoulder while I walked her through the settings. The hotspot came up. Her laptop connected. She let out a breath that sounded like it had been in her chest since Tuesday. "You just saved my life," she said. "You had everything you needed already," I said. "Just didn't know where it was." She looked at me for a second like she was trying to decide if that was a profound statement or just a regular sentence. Then she said, "Do you want coffee? It's from this afternoon, but I can make a fresh pot." Or, "I think I have beer. From when my friend Petra visited in March. That's probably still okay." "Beer's fine," I said. I should have left after that. Hotspot connected, problem solved, neighborly duty done. But she handed me a Sleeman Honey Brown, and she was already talking about her project. She was a graphic designer, freelance mostly, and she was finishing a brand package for a small restaurant group trying to open their second location in Canada. And I don't know, I just stayed. We ended up sitting on her floor with our backs against the couch because that's where she'd been working, surrounded by her printed mock-ups and color swatches. And she was explaining the difference between two nearly identical shades of terracotta while her laptop hummed along uploading everything it needed to upload. "Okay, but look," she said, holding up two printed squares. "This one is warm. This one is also warm, but different warm. My client cannot see the difference, and it's making me lose my mind a little." I looked at them. I could not see the difference either. "They look the same," I said. "Thank you," she said. "Thank you for being honest. My last client told me they looked the same too, and I spent 3 days convinced I was going colorblind." "Are you going colorblind?" "No. I got tested. My optometrist was very kind about it." I laughed. She grinned. She had a good grin, the kind that started slow and then took over her whole face before she seemed to realize it was happening. We talked for a while. She was from Hamilton originally, had been in Ottawa for about 4 years, had done a stint in Montreal, that she described as formative in ways I'm still processing. She'd moved into 4C 8 months ago, right around when I'd been mostly traveling for work, which is why we'd barely seen each other. She ran in the mornings sometimes, the canal path, but not consistently. She'd tried a gym membership and used it twice. "I went in January," she said, very earnest about it, and then February happened. "February always happens," I said. "Every year," she agreed, without fail. Her upload finished at 9:11 p.m. She checked it 3 times to make sure everything had gone through, typed a fast email to her client with a subject line that said delivered, sleep now, and then closed her laptop with both hands like she was putting something to rest. "Done," she said. "Done," I agreed. She leaned her head back against the couch. I was still sitting on the floor about 2 feet away from her, which was probably closer than two near strangers would usually sit, but the apartment was small, and the papers had been everywhere, and neither of us had really thought about it. "Can I ask you something?" she said. She was looking at the ceiling when she said it. I looked over at her. "Sure," I said. "Have you ever had a moment where something very small and stupid almost broke you? Like, not a real crisis, just a thing, and then someone fixed it in like 4 minutes and you felt like you might actually cry?" I thought about it. "Yeah," I said. "I locked myself out of my car in a Canadian Tire parking lot in January 2 years ago. I was trying to carry too many things, and my keys went in the bag that went in the car. The CAA guy came and got it open in under 5 minutes, and I shook his hand about 6 times." She turned her head to look at me. 6 times. He was very gracious about it. She laughed, a real one, surprised out of her. "That's exactly it," she said. "That's exactly what I mean." We were quiet for a second, not uncomfortable quiet, the kind where you've both said something small and real and neither of you needs to fill it. "You didn't have to stay," she said. "After the hotspot thing, you could have left." "I know," I said. "I'm glad you didn't," she said. She said it simply, just looking at me, not making a thing of it. But something about the way she said it, the directness of it, no softening, no joke attached, did something I wasn't expecting to the general functioning of my chest. "Me too," I said. She made the fresh pot of coffee after all. We didn't need it, but she made it and we drank it. And the conversation kept going the way good conversations do, where you stop tracking time entirely and then suddenly notice it's late in a way that requires a quick recalibration. I'd come over at 8:47. When I next thought to look at my phone, it was 11:23. "I should probably let you get some sleep," I said. "You've had a long week." "I have," she agreed, standing up and stretching. "Since Tuesday, as mentioned." I stood up too. We were in the small kitchen area now, both of us on our feet, the coffee cups on the counter. Her apartment felt different than it had when I'd arrived. Warmer, maybe, or maybe just more familiar. I knew where the extra cable was now. I knew about the cactus. I knew she'd been to an optometrist specifically about color perception. She walked me to the door. The hallway outside was quiet, the way apartment buildings get quiet after 11, just the low hum of the building itself and the muffled sound of a television somewhere on the floor above. "Thank you," she said. "For real. You absolutely did not have to do any of this." "It was good," I said, and I meant it. She had her hand on the doorframe, which put her slightly closer to me than the natural exit geometry of the doorway required. I'm aware that's an absurd thing to notice. I noticed it anyway. "Can I ask you one more thing?" she said. "You can ask me things," I said. "You don't need to keep announcing them." She laughed a little. Then she looked at me with an expression I can only describe as careful, like she was holding something and deciding whether to put it down. "Were you staying because of the router thing?" she said. "Or were you staying for a different reason?" The hallway had very good overhead lighting for a building hallway. I was aware of it in that moment in a way I usually wasn't. "Different reason," I said. She nodded once, slowly, like that was the answer she'd been testing the air for. "Okay," she said. "Good. Me too." Neither of us said anything for a second. Then she said, "You know you can knock on 4C again, for reasons that have nothing to do with routers." "I know that now," I said. She smiled, the slow one that took over, before she caught it, and said good night, and I walked the 12 steps down the hall to the stairwell and went upstairs to my apartment and stood in my kitchen for a while doing nothing in particular, which is technically what I'd planned for the evening, though it felt nothing like what I'd imagined. I knocked on 4C the next Saturday, no router issue, no technical emergency. Just knocked on the door at 11 in the morning with 2 coffees from the place on Bank Street. 1 Americano, 1 oat latte, because I didn't know which she'd want, and I figured I could drink whichever one she didn't. She opened the door in the same Carlton hoodie. She looked at both coffees. Then at me. "Did you buy 2 coffees?" she said. "So you had a cover story in case you needed one?" "No," I said. She looked at me for one more second. "Okay," she said and took the Americano. "Come in. Her name is Nadia. She is, at the time I'm telling you this, my girlfriend of 7 months, which still sounds strange to say out loud, not because it isn't true, but because the whole thing started in such an ordinary way that it catches me off guard sometimes. A dead router, a photograph of the wrong indicator lights, a hotspot that took 40 seconds to set up. We've had the conversation a few times about what the actual turning point was. She maintains it was when I admitted I was staying for a different reason. I maintain it was earlier, when she handed me her phone, without hesitating, without knowing anything about me, except that I'd helped her find her mailbox once. She says that's not a romantic moment. That's just trusting someone competent with a piece of technology. I said I thought those two things weren't always different. She thought about that for a while, and then said I might be right, which, from Nadia, is a fairly significant concession. The router, by the way, is still broken. She bought a new one the next morning, picked it up from Best Buy before her 10 a.m. call and set it up herself, sent me a photo of all the correct indicator lights glowing green with the caption. Turns out I could learn what these mean. I still have that photo. I don't know why I kept it. It's just a router, with the right lights on. But it was the first thing she sent me that wasn't about a problem needing solving. So if you'd been in my position, sitting on your neighbor's floor with a Sleeman you didn't need at 11 on a Tuesday night, and she looked at you and asked if you were staying for a different reason, what would you have said?